Abortion rights activists outside the highest court in the land erupted in cheers when the decision came down.
Today, women across America have had their constitutional rights vindicated.
The court threw out a Texas law that required abortion clinics to upgrade their facilities to hospital-like standards and for clinic doctors to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. Supporters of the law argued it raised the level of care for women. But the opposition said the law would have closed all but a handful of clinics in Texas. Justice Stephen Breyer, in the majority opinion, wrote, "The Texas law, quote, provides few, if any, health benefits for women, poses a substantial obstacle to women seeking abortions, and constitutes an undue burden on their constitutional right to do so." Justice Clarence Thomas wrote a bitter dissenting opinion accusing the court of eroding the Constitution, saying, "The court has simultaneously transformed judicially created rights like the right to abortion into preferred constitutional rights, while disfavoring many of the rights actually enumerated in the Constitution." The key in delivering this victory to abortion rights supporters, the perennial swing vote, Justice Anthony Kennedy.
It seems like he's swinging to the liberal side more frequently these days than he is to the conservative side.
Kennedy's decision to side with the liberals on the bench signals the court's majority in their favor could continue, regardless of who becomes president, and nominates a new justice to fill Antonin Scalia's empty seat.
It wouldn't have mattered if there was a President Trump nominee or if Justice Scalia was still on the bench. In that case, you would have had a 5-4 ruling instead of a 5-3 ruling. But either way, you would have had Justice Kennedy joining the 4 more liberal justices to provide a majority supporting abortion rights in this case.
Hearing the court's ruling, President Obama tweeted, "Every woman has a constitutional right to make her own reproductive choices. I'm pleased to see the Supreme Court reaffirm that fact today."
Today, women lost.
Meanwhile, anti-abortion activists are vowing to never give up.
Today we're really disappointed. The 5 justices let us down. We did face a loss, but the pro-life generation is coming back stronger than ever.
Well, welcome again to another program of Christian Answers. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we're going to be looking at a recent headline in the newspapers all over the country. It's the Supreme Court decision ruling on Texas abortion laws could lead to litigation all over the country. And in this article, I'm reading from the Ann Arbor News in the MLive website. And we're going to be taking a look at what is taking place now, or could be taking place in our country. We saw the Supreme Court in a 5-3 decision rule on Texas abortion laws. The state of Texas had set up a number of limitations on abortion, and Christians were applauding all of these limitations because, of course, we believe, according to the Bible, we believe in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not murder. The word there is murder. It is kill, but within the context of the 10 Commandments, that word is murder. That's the connotation of the word in the 10 Commandments. It's obviously not a prohibition against all killing, because the Lord God Almighty has actually commanded the Jews in many instances in the Old Testament to enter the Promised Land and to fight and kill and defend the land and to conquer the land. So it was not a reference to the mere fact of killing. It's the unjustified taking of a human life, or murder, that the prohibition is talking about. So the 10 Commandments say, thou shalt not murder. Christians see that as a prohibition against abortion, which is a form of murder. You're taking the innocent life of an unborn child, and you are ending that unborn child's life for no good reason. It's not enough just to say that the child is not wanted by the mother. That's not a good enough reason. It's not enough to say that the mother can't afford it, and so on and so forth. But the Supreme Court ruling on Texas abortion law could lead to mitigation in Michigan. And that's just one state, the state I'm in right now, doing this broadcast from. But there are other states that have limitations on abortion, And now the abortion rights activists are going to try to eliminate all of those laws that limit abortion. Their goal is complete and free, unlimited access to abortion. And you can see these abortion rights activists in Washington, D.C. when the Supreme Court decided their decision, that they're cheering and they're hugging and they're smiling and they're celebrating the right of women to be able to now kill their baby in the womb at an easier rate and a faster rate and an easier access to do that. They think that's a good thing. They think that women should have unlimited access to kill their baby in the womb, which is a very sick and twisted way of thinking, but that's the way our country is right now. But let's read a little bit of this article and talk more about it. Today's program will be a little bit different format. I will be using the article as the media today and not so much as face-to-face on a camera. I'm going to be in the background today. I'm going to be reading a little bit more than I normally do, but hopefully we can see the point here. Now, Monday's U.S. Supreme Court decision to strike down Texas regulations of abortion clinics could open the door for lawsuits on the issue in several other states, including Michigan. And that's just what I was saying. Many states have regulations concerning abortion. The infamous Roe v. Wade decision allows states to regulate abortion as they see fit. And so many states have done just that. They have said, okay, well, if Roe v. Wade is the law of the land and we can't do anything about that, at least we can regulate the killings. We can put some kind of a stop or curb on these killings that are occurring in our states. And so we will do that through access laws. And so many states are now enacting access laws, making it more difficult for a woman to just walk into an abortion clinic and have an abortion anytime she wants to. And this is a good law. We can see, for example, let's look at some of the states that have limits on abortion laws. For example, Indiana law banned abortions because of the fetus's race, sex, or genetic abnormalities such as Down syndrome. A federal judge has blocked the law. So they wanted to try to limit access to abortion just because they didn't want the woman to go in there and abort a child just because of the fetus's race or sex or genetic abnormalities. And the judge, unfortunately, has blocked that law. It was a good law. It's a good, solid law. South Dakota banned most abortions at 20 weeks of pregnancy, allowing misdemeanor charges against providers but not pregnant women. Mississippi prohibited a commonly used second trimester abortion procedure called dilation and evacuation, in which the fetus is dismembered. So Mississippi had laws against dismemberment. Another good regulation. So we see that some of these states are doing good, solid legislation. For example, Florida now requires abortion physicians to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals or the clinic to have a patient transfer agreement. It is similar to the Texas law struck down Monday. So that's unfortunate that these laws are being struck down. Idaho requires abortion providers to give women information about where they can receive free ultrasounds. Pretty harmless requirement there. Georgia now offers grants for pregnancy resource centers that typically discourage abortions. Well, that's good. It's good to try to help a woman understand that abortion is not her only alternative, and in fact that abortion is not a good alternative. It's good for states to try to do that, and unfortunately the Supreme Court decision recently may curtail even these modest efforts at restricting abortion. So The ruling, let's go on with the article. The ruling, which came down 5-3 Monday, sided with Texas clinics that argued the state's regulations were a thinly veiled attempt to make it harder for women to get abortions. Well, exactly. What's wrong with making it harder for women to get abortion? What's wrong with that? I mean, if abortion is murder, which it is, and it's something wrong, and even though the Supreme Court has ruled that in Roe v. Wade that states must allow for abortion, what's wrong with trying to limit abortion as much as you can, short of totally banning it, which you can't do according to Roe v. Wade? But if you can regulate it, why not regulate it? Why not discourage young women or any woman of any age from getting an abortion and helping her at least delay the decision to get an abortion, to think twice about it? I mean, what is wrong with that kind of thinking? There's nothing wrong with that kind of thinking. We should be trying to get women to think twice about it, and if we can, discourage them from having it altogether. Justice Stephen Breyer's majority opinion for the court held that the regulation specifically rules requiring doctors who perform abortions to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals and requiring clinics to meet hospital-like standards for outpatient surgery are medically unnecessary and unconstitutionally limit a woman's right to abortion. So what this justice, this pro-abortion justice, is doing is he's saying we're not going to require the normal and necessary medical requirements to be met in the case of abortion clinics, because abortion is such an important so-called woman's right that we're not going to regulate this in any way. We're going to just let these abortion clinics open. Whatever they want to do, they can do it. Whatever women want to do with their own body, we're not going to regulate these in any way, and we're going to strike down the laws in the states that require abortion clinics to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. That makes sense. What if something goes wrong? You want the abortion clinic to have some kind of a relationship with the hospital, admitting privileges required by the doctors who perform these abortions. You want the requiring clinics to meet hospital-like standards. Why not? Why not? The judges on the Supreme Court, the majority, have said, no, you cannot limit access to abortion at all, in hardly any cases. And this is the pro-choice party line, and now the judges have done it. Breyer wrote that the surgical center requirement, like the admitting privileges requirement, provides few, if any, hospital benefits for women, poses a substantial obstacle to women seeking abortions, and constitutes an undue burden on their constitutional right to do so. So, in his eyes, in this judge's eyes, any restriction at all on abortion is bad. He wants to take away any roadblock, anything that would require that woman to think a little bit more about what she's doing, anything that might discourage her from having an abortion. Oh, that's terrible. We can't do that. Breyer wrote that the surgical requirements, Michigan does not have a requirement. That's the state I'm in right now. Michigan does not have a requirement for admitting privileges, but language similar to what was struck down on Monday's ruling on outpatient surgery clinics performing abortions was put on the books in HB 5711 and signed into law by Governor Rick Snyder in 2012. So, Michigan might be next in getting this law struck down, unfortunately. These have common sense to them. These laws are there for a purpose, and if they discourage a woman from having abortion, if they make it a little more difficult, okay, so what? This is a big deal. When you walk into an abortion clinic and tell a doctor you'd like to kill your child, that's a big deal. And so anything that can discourage that would be welcome. State advocates say the court's decision could open a window for Michigan and other states to make a legal case for striking down regulations. Yes, That's the sad part about this. That's the sad part. It provides a framework for possible challenges to the law in other states. So this could possibly spread, unfortunately. On a call with members of the media, Planned Parenthood preemptively brought 2 of its centers into compliance with the 2012 law to the tune of $1 million. She argued the changes were costly and had virtually no benefits to the patients. So they were grumbling about how much these regulations were costing them. But we would also want to remind them that they're probably making enough through the sale of fetal body parts, as we found out in those videos that were shot undercover. They probably make more than enough from those fetal body part sales to cover those added expenses. So we shouldn't be too sad when we hear them crying about how they were forced to bring their clinics in line with medical procedures. That's just a cover. They want no restrictions to abortion. Senator Rebecca Warren, Democrat of Ann Arbor, said the court's decision also validates arguments and regulations specifically targeting women's health care, and no other medical providers should not stand. Women's health care, that is a big phrase, and we've seen that phrase used before. Women's health care. Abortion, evidently, is being allowed to follow the rhetoric of women's health care. Women's health care. Abortion is murder, first and foremost. It's not about women's health. The baby in the womb and pregnancy is a normal and natural part of a woman's life cycle. Getting pregnant is not a health crisis. It is a normal, natural part of being a woman, and women throughout the ages have seen pregnancy as a normal, healthy life process. It isn't a health crisis. In fact, here in the West, being pregnant is not as much of a risk to the woman as it has been in the past. For almost at any point in time in past history, today we have such sophisticated health care that just being pregnant isn't a health care crisis. But the pro-choice or the pro-abortion side wants to try to frame this and make a narrative that a pregnancy is such a terrible thing, and carrying a child is such a terrible thing, and no woman should have to be, quote, burdened by that. And that's their argument for abortion, one of their arguments. We have to see through that. It is not a women's health care issue primarily. It's a issue of justice, right and wrong. You can't kill a person in the womb and then stop talking about that as the main issue and start talking about, well, that was for the woman's health. 99.9% of abortions have nothing to do with a woman's health. There's no risk for her health. It's just simply a matter she doesn't want that child. And that's not acceptable. When you are pregnant, it is not acceptable to say, I don't want that child. You have that child. That child is now alive. It's a unique individual person. That child is like any other person on the planet Earth. That child has a right to life. And just because you don't want that child is not good enough reason that you will kill that child, that you will murder that child. And so states should be able to regulate this kind of activity, this taking of a human life. And it should be a very grave and serious issue. And states have every right to say, no, we're not going to allow women to just casually walk into an abortion clinic and kill their baby. We're going to put some restrictions, some limitations on it. If we can't stop it outright, which is what Roe v. Wade says, you cannot eliminate or ban abortion outright. according to the Roe versus Wade decision in 1973, unfortunately. And we're hoping and praying that that can be overturned. But short of having that overturned, states have every right to be able to curtail this violent, murderous activity within the borders. And now the Supreme Court says, no, we're going to remove even more restrictions to abortion. You can't regulate it here, you can't regulate it there. And they're making it much more difficult for states to take control of their own borders as far as what violence takes place within the borders. It says now we must ensure that every woman, no matter where they live or how much they earn, get comprehensive, safe, quality health care. There you go again, that word phrase, quality health care when they need it. In other words, killing a child in the womb is lumped under health care. Now, you might think that that would be the case if you had a cancerous lump on your body. Yes, that's a healthcare issue. We want to remove that cancerous lump on your body. A baby in the womb is not a cancerous lump. It is a living soul. And it is not simply and solely a matter of the woman's health. It's a matter of the right to life of a human person. Michigan Republican Party Chair Ronna Romney McDaniel decried the ruling, saying in a statement, the decision strips states of their power and shows what's truly at stake in the 2016 presidential election. So she is saying it's a states' right issue, which it is. It is definitely a state right issue. You know, you have killings taking place within your states. The state definitely has an interest in regulating that kind of violence. But she doesn't talk about the child in the womb, which really is the issue. That's the supreme concern that we have as Christians. We should be thinking in terms of what is right for the child, and not just celebrating a woman's right to decide what her health care procedures are. It's not about primarily a health care procedure. It's about a human life in the womb. Now, let's read further. Michigan, today's Supreme Court ruling flies in the face of our constitutional rights, taking more power away from the states and putting it in the hands of federal government. That's her side of the argument. We need to elect a president who will appoint rule of law justices to uphold our constitutional rights, not more justices that will regulate from the bench. So her argument, although I agree with it, really does miss the point of the regulation, and that is to cause women to think twice about killing and murdering the baby in the womb. Anti-abortion right group Right to Life of Michigan stated in a blog post that the decision was disappointing but not surprising and would continue to allow substandard abortion clinics to operate through the country. So, they are disappointed. Of course they are disappointed because this opens up more access to more abortions. This will definitely give rise to more abortions within Michigan. It'll give rise to more abortions all over the country. The abortions, the statistics should go up. And as Christians, we want to see that statistic go down. We want to see less and less and less abortions. We want to see less murders of babies in the womb. We want to see access to murder less and less and less. And so the practical effect of Justice Breyer's opinion is that dangerous and unsanitary clinics must be allowed to continue operating if there are no other abortion clinics nearby. 5 justices of the Supreme Court are now in charge of health regulations at abortion clinics, not state regulators. Well, that is the comments of the Right to Life of Michigan. Now, what they're not saying is that they're trying to appeal and speak in terms of state rights. They're saying, and they're also trying to talk and appeal to the health of the woman. And we all know that that is important, but that is not the real issue. The real issue is we want to be able to limit and curtail and cause for pause these abortions from occurring, period. We want women on a minimum to be able to understand what they are doing and understand the gravity of what they are doing. We want limitations on easy access to abortion. At the present time, we cannot restrict all abortions. We cannot ban abortion outright. No state can do that. That would be overturned immediately, and the case of Roe v. Wade would overturn it. But what states have been able to do in the last few years is curtail abortion to the point where it's very difficult to get an abortion in certain areas of certain states, which is a good thing. From a Christian perspective, whenever you limit the access to violence and murder and the killing of the unborn child, that's a good thing. Now the Supreme Court justices have said, no, we're going to take that away from you guys. You're not going to be able to limit the access, and you're not going to be able to prevent abortions from happening in that way. Justice Thomas wrote in the decision, this exemplifies the court's troubling tendency to bend the rules when any effort to limit abortion or even speak in opposition to abortion is at issue. So, Thomas is a pro-life justice. Unfortunately, we don't have many of those left on the Supreme Court, and the only ones that are in the majority now are the pro-death justices. And so we're going to have to see more and more, unfortunately, celebrations of this sort where you have people, you have women like these women here, abortion rights activist Morgan Hopkins of Boston left, Allison Turkos of New York rejoice in front of the Supreme Court in Washington Monday, June 27, 2016, as the justices struck down the strict Texas anti-abortion restriction law known as HB 2. So they're happy, they're excited. They think this is a great victory for women because now women can kill their child in the womb easier now. They don't have to think about what they're doing. They don't have to be told that you can go see an ultrasound of that baby in there. You should go see an ultrasound, or we'll help you see an ultrasound so that you can see the gravity of what you're doing. No, these women are happy because now women don't have to hear that message. They don't have to hear any of the pro-life or even medical information. They can just go and get an abortion and be done with it. And from a Christian perspective, that's a bad thing, because we want people to take the time to think about what they're doing, to take the time to think about the gravity of what they're doing. They are not just removing a blob of cancerous tissue from their body. They are taking the life of an innocent baby, ending its life forever. That baby is a unique person, just like anyone else walking the face of the earth, and these women are freed now to go into abortion clinics, and these will pop up now all over the place because the restrictions have been lifted. And they can go in there, women can go in there and have their child destroyed legally. Thank you, Supreme Court justices, in a 5-3 decision. This is the America you are creating for us. Now, Christians, we need to pray. We need to ask God to intervene, because things have gone from bad to worse in this respect. We need to ask God to speak to the hearts and minds of people, especially our leaders, and bring common sense back to this situation, because right now there is a lot of irrationality. There's a lot of evil, sinful worldview activity taking place. We need to pray that God brings sanity to our nation once again, restores the right to life to every citizen, even the most vulnerable, the unborn. Well, that's been my report for today. This is Pastor Jeff Short. We'll see you back here next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.